Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We are from Group 1.
We will discuss about morphemes and allomorphs.
So before we start our presentation, let us introduce ourselves one by one. I'm Nur Fajrah and I'll discuss about the definition and the example of morpheme. I'm Rahayu S and I'll present the material about the definitions of allomorphs.
And I'm Juslina. I will present about the example of allomorph. And I'm Ratna Kumalasari. I will discuss about recognizing of morphemes.
Okay, the first material is the definition and example of morphemes. Okay, a morpheme is the smallest unit of meaning we have. It is the smallest pitch of a word that contributes meaning to a word. It is smallest because it cannot be further divided into smaller units. And then the second example of morpheme. First, technique. It has one morpheme in it, that is technique. And the second, buyer. It has two morphemes. By, that is three morpheme, and then suffix er. Training, it has three morphemes in it. That is, train is three morpheme in suffix, and s is also suffix. Well, the next material is about the definition of allomorphs. So, some morphemes may have more than one phonemic form depending on the context in which they occur. These phonemic forms are referred to as allomorphs. An allomorph is a variant form of a morpheme which differs only in tone, not in meaning. It is an alternative manifestation of a morpheme which varies in pronunciation according to phonological conditions. In other hand, allomorphs is also defined as the phenomenon that a morpheme may have more than one shape, correspondence with more than one morphs. A morph is a particular phonological form of a morpheme, and allomorphs is found in both affixes and root morphemes. Some linguists prefer to restrict the term allomorphs to those cases in which the variation in phonetic shape of a morpheme does not follow from the automatic phonological rules of the language.
The next is the example of allomorphs. The second one in the past tense. In English, for example, the past tense morpheme, usually written as ed, has three phonemic forms depending on the nature of the preceding sounds. After voiceless sounds other than t, it's pronounced t as in stopped. After voice sounds other than d, it's pronounced d as in named. After the sounds T or D, it's pronounced ID as in waited. The three phonemic forms T, D, and ID are thus considered allomorphs of the past tense morpheme ed. And the second one, as in cats, dogs, and horses. If one compares cats, dogs, and horses with cat, dog, and horse, respectively, the obvious answer is by adding s, but English spelling is notoriously unreliable as a gauge to pronunciation. In fact, this s suffix has three allomorphs as in cats or lambs, Z as in dogs or days, and Z or S as in horses or judges. Last material about recognizing morphemes. So, like we know, a morpheme is a short segment of language that meets three basic criteria. The first is it is a word or a part of word that has meaning, and the second is it cannot be divided into smaller meaningful segments without changing its meaning or leaving a meaningless remainder. And the last one is it has relatively the same stable meaning in different verbal environments. And then uh, free and bound morphemes. So there are two types of morphemes. There are free morphemes and bound morphemes. Free morphemes can stand alone with a specific meaning, for example, eat, dead, weak, and etc. Meanwhile, bound morphemes cannot stand alone with meaning. Morphemes are comprised of two separate classes called base or roots and affixes. So, a base or root is a morpheme in a word that gives that word its principal meaning. An example of a free base morpheme is woman in the word womanly. An example of a bound base morpheme is saint in the word decent. And then affixes. So an affix is a bound morpheme that occurs before or after a base. An affix that comes before a base is called a prefix. Some examples of prefixes are ante, pre, and endis. And then an affix that comes after a base is called suffix. Some examples of suffixes are ly, er, ism, and nes. And then derivational affixes. So an affix can be either derivational or inflectional. Derivational affixes serve to alter the meaning of a word by building on a base. In the examples of a word with prefixes and suffixes above, the addition of the prefix "unto healthy" alters the meaning of healthy. The resulting word means not healthy. The addition of the suffix "er" to garden changes the meaning of garden, which is a place where plants, flowers, etc. grow, to a word that refers to a person who tends a garden. It should be noted that all prefixes in English are derivational. However, suffixes may be either derivational or inflectional. And then inflectional affixes. There are a large number of derivational affixes in English. In contrast, there are only 8 inflectional affixes in English, and these are all suffixes. English has the following inflectional suffixes, which serve a variety of grammatical functions when added to specific types of words. These grammatical functions are shown to the right of each suffix. Adding by s is non-plural, adding s is non-possessive, and then as for present tense third person singular, and adding ing is verb present participle or gerund, and adding ed is verb simple past tense, and adding en is verb past perfect participle, and adding by er is adjective comparative, and the last is adding by est is adjective superlative. Well, that's all the presentation of our group.
Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.